Hey gang, it's JC, and this is the Daily Dose for Friday, October 26, 2012. A combined venture with Mind Active in beautiful downtown Clayton. We have great TV archives up top, JC's Eye Candy below, and the results of our rock and roll poll. Now, this has been happening a lot lately, obviously, because the election now is only a couple of days away. And do you think it's petty to drop a Facebook friend for posting political material or opinions that you disagree with? And our number one answer is 34%. It depends on how frequent and obnoxious the postings are. Number two answer, I am stunned by. 31% of you, a full third of the people who watch this, are not on Facebook. 31% of you aren't on Facebook. How do you know what your grandkids are doing? All right, number three answer is yes, it is petty to do so because Facebook posts are little brain farts that shouldn't be taken seriously and not worth losing a friend over. And the next answer is with 12%, no, Facebook isn't the place for stuff like this and people should know better. And finally, a whopping 4% of you said issues like this should be resolved the good old-fashioned way by keying the guy's car and egging his house. All right, so that leads us to today's rock and roll poll question, and it has a lot to do with what I'm going to be talking about here in just a couple of minutes. How would you rate the current state of St. Louis radio? How would you rate the current state of St. Louis radio? A, great, I have stations I like and I listen a lot. B, there's only a couple of stations and shows that I like. C, it seems like there's less and less that interests me. Or D, pathetic, WTF happened, what the F happened? Please answer down in the corner and we'll have results for you on Monday. And we update every Monday and Thursday. I'm a day late here. It wouldn't be the first time, by the way. All right, this is a special edition of the Daily Dose because I've got 3 anniversaries to talk about, and that's really going to be the focus of this entire conversation here today. 3 anniversaries. The first one is, if you are over the age of 45, you probably remember this one. Maybe over the age of 50 or even 55, because I was real little when this happened. But this is the 50th anniversary this week of the Cuban Missile Crisis. The whole place almost went boom, folks. When you really study what happened in the Cuban Missile Crisis, you understand that we were 15 minutes away from nuclear annihilation. And if it wasn't for cooler heads that prevailed, you had John F. Kennedy's own cabinet, Curtis LeMay, on whom one of the characters in Dr. Strangelove was based. So you had people who just said, you know, basically what happened is our reconnaissance planes were flying over Cuba and they saw that the Cubans had basically built a bunch of missile sites pointed right at the United States. And Kennedy got on the phone with the Kremlin like, hey, what the hell's going on here? And you had 13 days of utter chaos, confusion, and we came this close, 15 minutes, to complete nuclear annihilation. The only time I ever saw my dad scared was when Kennedy was on TV talking about what happened. Bomb shelters, people who didn't have bomb shelters were trying to figure out how are we going to get in one. And you know, because it is now known that if the United States invaded Cuba to try to take those missile sites down, that Khrushchev was going to bomb the crap out of New York City and level it. And that would have set off a domino effect, and that would have been the end. It sort of would have been like the end of war games, where you just saw all of these, you know, arcs of all these bombs going off one after another, and it probably would have blown everything off the face of the earth, and we wouldn't be sitting here right now. So, as far as I'm concerned, we are living on borrowed time. This week, the 50th anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and by the way, if you had people, even Mitt Romney, by the way, who it doesn't bother me that much, but bothers me enough now that he's basically saying that if somebody wants to get in our faces, we'll just go bomb the crap out of them. And that's what Bush would have done, that whole bring it on thing. And Kennedy understood the consequences. He understood that if he didn't negotiate, and if he didn't bargain this thing out, and if cooler heads didn't prevail, boom, boom, out goes the lights. But anyhow, that's the story. 50th anniversary this week. Second anniversary is not a good one because it was 3 years ago today that KHITS 96 ceased airing of the JC and the Morning Showgram with Laurie Mack and John the U-Man Hewlett and Carl Middleman. 3 years ago today. The best show I've ever been associated with. And so people still scratch their heads and wonder, why? Did somebody do something? Did somebody get in trouble? Is there some sort of story they didn't tell us? And the answer is sort of like yes and no. No, there wasn't any catastrophic thing that happened, but and it certainly wasn't the way the story was reported on TV, or especially by some dopes at the St. Louis Business Journal who don't know their asses from a hole in the ground. All they did was just take what the management at K-Hits told them and they just printed it. They didn't do any reporting. Unfortunately, it was all wrong. The company was bleeding money 3 years ago. It still is, by the way, but it was in real bad shape 3 years ago. We had just finished making long-term plans for the show and the station. We had just had a photo shoot. Now, you don't have a photo shoot and make long-term plans if you're thinking about canceling the show. So whatever came down from corporate came down very, very quickly. They may have only had a couple of days to prepare for what was going to be done after they pulled our show off the air. By the way, arguably the most popular radio personality in Chicago, Jonathan Brandmeier, who is also run by the company that ran our show, was pulled off the air 3 weeks later. His contract was yanked. So there was certainly something going on inside the company, and on top of it, we always knew at K-Hits that we were sort of the red-haired bastard stepchild, and we certainly, if there was any doubt in anybody's mind how the company felt about K-Hits 96, it was confirmed when they pulled our show off the air, turned it into a jukebox, and even yanked them out of the studio that we had and put them in what amounts to a closet, and that's where they are today. There's also a new rating system that got plugged in that is just absolutely a joke. And all of these things resulted in a gross overreaction. And so you can hear what's on the air now. It ain't much. It's basically kids who will work for almost nothing, things that were grandfathered in, or a lot of right-wing talk show hosts on a lot of right-wing radio stations. And then as far as music stations are concerned, the hosts who can't talk more than 10 seconds or they get in trouble. Basically what radio has done, not just in St. Louis, but across the country, because they're responding to this new rating system, and I'll have to explain that later. But, you know, you just can't talk. You know, and in doing so, radio, the radio industry, is eradicating from itself one of the primary reasons that people gravitate to certain radio stations, and that is the power and the strength of the individual personalities who are on those stations. So, you know, they're trying to compete with iPods. You can't compete with an iPod because, first of all, there's no such thing as a bad song on an iPod because you're the dumbass who put them in. And also, on an iPod, the music doesn't stop twice an hour for 8 minutes for not only commercials, but 8 minutes of bad commercials. So you can't compete with iPods. The whole thing is just terribly misguided, and that's where we are now. And if things are going to change, I don't know, maybe they'll change someday. But right now, it's still in the mud, and it ain't moving, and you can hear it on the air every day. It's just absolutely pathetic. In the meantime, I built this wonderful studio here in my house, and you know, I can go on the air anywhere in the country, and I've been doing a couple of days a week on a powerhouse radio station in Chicago, one of the biggest radio stations in America, WGN, getting ready to go on the air here, as a matter of fact, in about 1 hour or so, as we sit here at 10:59 on Friday morning. So that's pretty much the update on what's going on. Is it going to get better? I don't know. Will I end up back on the air in St. Louis? I don't know. I'm glad I saved my money, and I'm glad that that apparently I'm not good enough to be on the air in St. Louis anymore, but I'm good enough to be on what is basically the biggest radio station in Chicago. It's sort of funny that way. And finally, I told you there were 3 anniversaries we're going to talk about today, and the third one is that it was 5 years ago this weekend that I married the lovely Triple C. She's more beautiful today than she was the day I married her, and so we are going to be celebrating all weekend long. I might not look too good on Monday morning. I'd like to have a moment of silence right now and an observation of all the hops and barley that will give their lives over the course of this weekend. So that's pretty much it. Happy 5th anniversary to the love of my life, Miss Triple C. All right, JC's Eye Candy, there it is. The photograph that was taken just a couple of weeks before they pulled the plug on us. Laurie Mack, JC Corcoran, John the U-Man Hewlett, and Carl the Intern Middleman. That was the show, the old showgram on K-Hits 96. It ended 3 years ago today. Still just one of the stupidest things I can... And I have a lot of friends over there, including the people who are in management. But you can be friends with somebody, and you can like somebody, and you can admire somebody and respect somebody, and still think that what they did was stupid, and I do, because there should have been some way to preserve this in some fashion. And, you know, we could be helping them, and they need help, by the way. All right, back to the Ryan Roll poll question. What do you think about the current state of St. Louis radio? A, great. I have stations I like and listen a lot. B, there's only a couple of stations and shows I like. C, it seems like there's less and less that interests me. Or D, pathetic. What the happened? Please answer down in the corner results for you on Monday. That's it. Have a great weekend, everybody. Happy Halloween. A lot of Halloween parties this weekend. And here's a clean joke that your kids can tell, and your grandkids or nieces and nephews. What do you get when you cross an elephant with a rhinoceros? Elefino. Run with it. It's a great, clean joke for kids, if they can say rhinoceros. That's it. JC's Daily Dose for Friday, October 26, 2012. A combined venture with Mind Active in beautiful downtown Clayton. And in the meantime, we've beaten this one to death. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.